Greetings, my peeps. I'm John the Verbose, and this video is the YTpaganChallenge video for week 21 on do you have a Grimoire or a Book of Shadows? Alright, before we get into this, it's disclaimer time, everybody's favorite part. I am a druid in the Reformed Druids of North America, though I do not speak on behalf of all druids, nor do I speak on behalf of Reformed Druidry. My views and opinions I express are my own, and you can take it or leave it. So, I don't really know why I have this here, it just kind of looks cool. Let's take that away. Alright, so, okay, let's actually start with Book of Shadows versus a Grimoire. Again, my interpretation is that a Grimoire, in very simple terms, would equate a lot closer to a how-to book or a spell book, something with instructions, whereas a Book of Shadows, in my opinion, is something that is more personal, has a lot more deeper insights into yourself. And so that is my nutshell definition of both. I know a lot of people kind of use the terms interchangeably, and I understand that. Because it's definitely, when we refer to them, it kind of invokes this ominous or occult or some sort of, I don't know, imagery that we just can't quite fully grasp. It's esoteric, to say the least. My Book of Shadows is a work in progress, and it is really more a place where I can set forth some self-expression in the form of text or drawn imagery. Poems, dreams will land here sometimes. This is almost entirely written in India ink with a seagull feather quill dip pen that I've made. Yeah, I mean, this is my Book of Shadows is very personal to me, and so that's why it has to be censored, so I apologize for that. As far as grimoires go, by my own definition, I have many. This is one that I made, as bookbinding is one of my hobbies. So this one just has a simple, like a cabinet hasp to keep it closed. It's got oak boards. Well, one thing that makes it esoteric is that, well, there's no writing on the outside, but you don't see what's written beneath the leather on the oak boards. So, even though I do consider it a grimoire, it does have its shadow aspect indeed. And so this one is, there's a book called the Galdra, which is an Icelandic book of magic. And the Galdra is a collection of ancient grimoires from Icelandic and other Nordic countries that were from, I think they were collected from documents that date between the 1600s to the 1800s. And so it does incorporate a lot of Christian thaumaturgy and imagery in it. There's also a lot of references to ghosts, ancient deities. They really did blend their traditions when these were from actual historical grimoires. This one, well, unfortunately, the Galdra, at the time that I was looking into this, was very much out of print, and so the rare ones that I could find were apparently so rare that somebody decided to put a $1,000 price tag on one of the books that was published on this in the, I think it was 1981. And so I basically found these resources from a Russian website, and since I speak Russian, well, especially at the time, I spoke it almost fluently, and I carefully translated everything that I could find on the Russian website that seemed to just have everything that was in the Galdra, and possibly from outside resources as well. Basically, when I designed this grimoire, I designed it on a basic notebook first, and then I planned every single page, every single category, front and back, and so then I ended up with like 200 and actually not that many pages. 143 pages. The last page is just intentionally blank because I glued the end papers to it. And by the way, this end paper is Tyvek painted brown, and it has a really nice marbled effect. So I thought that was pretty cool. And Tyvek, yes, it's a synthetic material made of like spun fibers, but for end papers it will hold for a very long time, whereas contemporary end papers will start to tear from the bottom and work their way up, and then you have a book that's falling apart after it's being used for a long time. So I intended my book, this one is definitely something that could be heirloom quality. And so, yeah, like I said, the imagery I found on a Russian website, translated it into English to the best of my ability, and so, yeah, some things I did omit, and some things I added to it. Like, I actually, in the back of the book, I actually added a whole section on runes, with, like, the basic rune divination set. So, but the Galdr book is heavily, well, it details out, basically, as you can see, sigil magic. And so, and it also does have a lot of incantations that are in Icelandic, and I actually used the Futhark alphabet to just transliterate them into runes. But so I can read the runes almost as fast as I can read Russian, which is almost as fast as I can read English. So yeah, it's an interesting way of it's what one of my college professors would have said, that was the long way around the barn. So yeah, and then after I had made this, which I'm always glad that I did, and after I made it, lo and behold, a limited reprint was released. And so here I have the Galdr book, and this is a reprint of the original from 1980 that somebody wanted to sell me for $1,000. And this thing has a ton of history, and it is so amazing that to see all the history and how A led to B and how they're combining all these things. And it really went into depth about the history of the church in the Nordic countries and how that played into the sigil magic and how Christian symbols were added into it. So crosses are a very common thing to come across in Icelandic magical staves. I was so glad to see there were like 11 copies of this left at the time that I spotted it, and so it's like it was an impulse purchase, and it was a delight to actually receive this. So these are, in essence, they're almost one and the same. So I'm glad I have this one, though, because it actually has so much more historical information in there, which is very, very important to make sure you're getting right. Also along the bookbinding is I also developed a divinatory set based on glagolitic runes, and I talked about this in my divination video earlier in the year. And this one, the glue is still kind of crackly. Oh, I forgot to say that you should smell this book. Here, smell this. You smell that? Yeah, that's a medley of herbs that I put in there. When I glued the leather onto the oak boards, I used E6000 industrial strength, everything proof glue, which I don't regret, but it smells really bad for a really long time. And so that's why I put, I made this little black sachet of herbs, different culinary herbs, and I just put it in here, and it became its own special thing. I didn't really look into the herbs that I put in there. I know that star anise was in there, and fennel, and there was some sage. So each each night, I would keep this in a drawer because it smelled so strong for days. And so I would just move the sachet of herbs a few pages ahead every night. And I haven't done that since like 2012, but it still smells so wonderful. You can really smell the star anise. So yeah, that's really nice. So, but I used a different glue on this, which is why it's really crackly. And I made this book as well, and so it's kind of the how-to of how I interpret my glagolitic runes. And so it's a grimoire by my definition. We have my other book that I made. This is, you can hear that same glue in there, but this is Arda. It is an adapted form of Arda, which is a Reformed Druid anthology, which is basically well, it does have our rituals in it. Hey, it's my business card. Let's see, like ordinations. It's the instructions on how to ordain. Let's see, what page is this? Ordination of 5th Order Druids into the Order of Brekiaka. And then there are other rituals up here. Like here's our basic liturgy for the summer half of the year. Hand fastings. The Book of Opposition, which is how we deal with the anti-druid. And a book of vigils about our time-honored tradition. So this is incredibly significant, and it is a condensed version of a Reformed Druid anthology, 1st edition. Dirty book. I actually made this one. It's one of my early attempts at simple binding, which is another word for paperback. And so this is the same grimoire I just showed you, but this one is a little bit more extensive. And oh yeah, this one has pictures. But and so this one is available for free download in PDF form in, I think it's 9 different files, because the PDF would be too big if it was this whole thing. So yeah, free download at www.rdna.info. It also has freely available copies of the 2nd edition, which is twice as big. And it's actually missing the green books, which is Green Book of Meditations, which is also separately about this size. So 3rd edition is in the works right now, and supposedly it's like going to be 3,000 pages. This one's only 800. Yeah, lots of stuff in this grimoire. Also, there's my Book of the 3rd Order, which I showed in a recent video about how to ordain people into the 3rd Order of Reformed Druidism. And this is all I will show you, because it is not for general distribution. So, besides that one, I made 2 smaller ones. I made the red book myself. These smaller books are the same thing, and so these are just little traveling pocket editions that I made. So we've got one for the presiding 3rd Order Druid, and we got one for the person to read their script while they were being ordained, because they have words and they don't know what the words say until they read them. So it's kind of like a all-at-once thing to take in as part of your ordination. So those are most of my grimoires. That's my video. These are my hands. I'm over here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.